Hi, this video is going to give some alternatives for Hero's Pose or Virasana. And I'm going to show a few options for this seated posture to make it more accessible or available if you've got any kind of knee issue, and that can be an injury, that can be pain, or it can just be a limited amount of flexion. And this can be a really, this pose can be a struggle for a lot of people because of those things. But it's a really nice pose because it's a symmetrical pose. So if you see the one that I'm sitting in right now, I've got one leg in front of the other. This is actually creating a little imbalance in my body, and I need to remember to switch my feet from time to time. And if I've got stuff going on with my SI joint or my low back, this can be aggravating to do just one side and then the other. So Virasana has some benefits because it keeps you in a more symmetrical state. But if your knees are saying no, then that's going to be a challenge. So we want to take a little of that challenge off the table. So to start off with, I'm going to recommend grabbing some props if you've got them available. So if you have yoga blocks, you'll want your yoga blocks. If you don't, just get a stack of similar sized books that you could stack and it'll be pretty sturdy. Grab a chair. It does not have to be a yoga chair, but a chair without arms preferably, and preferably one that's not huge that you can move easily. If you've got a bolster, you may want to get your bolster as well, and then a yoga blanket if you want to put some padding under your knees. So to start off with, once you've gathered your props, just come onto your knees, and we'll start off with the simplest prop that you'll probably find available to you in any yoga studio, and that's the blocks. So I'm going to recommend stacking your blocks like this. So with this width, Virasana is practiced with the knees together or close together, feet apart, and you'll be sitting all the way on the floor. But if there's space between your bum and the floor, you're going to want to put blocks there to raise the height. So this could be because of pain or because of a knee flexion issue. And I know a lot of my students and clients have had knee replacement, so it's not a pain issue, it's just the knee won't flex that far. So here I'm starting out with 2 blocks, and that's just giving me enough height to reduce a little of the pressure in the knee joint. So I'm still flexing the knee pretty deeply. So if you've got osteoarthritis, this still may not be a good place for you to be. But if you're not feeling pain, and this is comfortable, this can be a great alternative. This is a good position to sit for meditation as long as you don't feel any sensation or pressure in the knees. And it may be that 2 blocks is way too much, so if you're feeling pretty comfortable, you can take one of those blocks or one of those books out from under you, readjust your block, and have a seat again, see if that's okay. So for me, typically, this is going to be where I hang out. I want a little bit of height. It just feels better on my knees. My butt doesn't quite reach the floor, so I wouldn't be able to sustain that for very long. And this is a great way to kind of bring the floor to meet me, so to speak. All right, so that's the first one. The second one is going to be a little bit less accessible for some, but the bolster, if you're doing a reclining Hero's Pose and you're comfortable with one block, but you're not comfortable without any height at all, a bolster can make the reclining version a little more accessible. So the way you would do it, and this is an extra long bolster, so if you're a little taller and you have a shorter bolster, you may want to put your block at the top of the bolster like that for the head. So it's essentially the same thing. You'll sit with your feet on either side of the bolster and have a seat on the bolster itself. And there we are. So again, this could be your modification instead of the blocks if you've got a bolster handy. And then you can lean back. So it's important to remember that in reclined Hero's Pose, this might be your reclined Hero's Pose. You may need to keep a little bit of a height by staying on your hands like so. But if you can take it all the way back without feeling any pressure in the knees, and it is okay if the knees come up a little bit. Oh, and I did need the block, glad I put it there. So if you can come all the way back, this is going to keep the floor up a little bit. I'm getting more of an intense stretch along my thighs, and I'm still not feeling a lot of sensation or irritation in the knees. So this would be more for like a yin class or restorative class if reclined Hero's Pose is not available to you. Giving yourself a little bit of height might make it available. The other option here, and I'm going to come back up by just walking myself back up, But the other option is to do one leg at a time. That can sometimes take a little pressure out. So I'll just lean to one side, and basically I'm gonna keep this foot forward or even extend the leg. And that just puts a little bit less pressure on my knee. However, it's not quite as symmetrical of a pose in the pelvis. So if you can stack up some height for yourself and make it a little more available, that's probably a better option. So, and you would obviously want to do one side and then the other. So trying to make that even. And the final option that I'm gonna give you is to use your chair. So move your stuff out of the way. And the blanket is if you need like a little less than the bolster. I just knew you could use a blanket in place of the bolster, but I knew I needed a little more height than that under my knees today. All right, so your chair, you're gonna position your chair so that you are sitting on it sideways. So I'm gonna turn it this way so you can see me from the side. And this is gonna help you get a little bit of a stretch in your legs as if you were in heroes. And this is gonna be half hero because you can only do one leg at a time, obviously, because you're using the chair. So you'll sit on the chair sideways, and then this is gonna be the bent knee. So I'm just gonna scoot a little bit more to the edge and take my leg back and reach the knee towards the floor. You could put a block under your knee if you wanted to actually push the knee into the floor, and work your foot back a little bit more if you need more of a stretch in the leg. And you might be feeling something pretty intense here. So if you do get an intense stretch by doing this, you may find yourself kind of leaning away from it. So basically what you're trying to look for is keeping your shoulders stacked over your hips, both laterally and vertically. So if you're leaning forward, you may want to kind of bring it back. So you might want to do this one in front of a mirror at first to see how you're positioning yourself and kind of get a feel for it. But this is a great way to work on hero's pose, especially if you have access to a chair. And then same thing, we'll just come to the other side, kind of slide to the edge of the chair, take your foot back, and basically all you really need to do is point your knees straight down. It does not need to be really far back. Just straight down is going to start to lengthen the hip flexors and open up the front of the body. And then come around, and those are your alternatives for hero's pose. Thank you for joining me for this tutorial. Have a great day.